G'day everybody, welcome back. Been a while, eh? I get a bit over this camera filming crap, especially if I've got nothing to say or do. What are we doing today? We're going for a ride down to the Dover RSL. We're about halfway. Pull up at the Margate train, pick up a few more peeps. I might just adjust that position of that. Leave it there. See how it goes. That's what's it called? 360-degree camera. Yeah, nice day. A little coolish. It's not 43 degrees Celsius, so this freaking dash, I tell you. When I bought this bike, ever since the day I bought this bike, it's had two functions that don't work. One of them is that ambient temperature readout on the dash. The other one is the heated grips. Now, it's been a bit of a battle with it too, because I wasn't too concerned about the ambient temperature readout. The heated grips, it'd be nice to have, you know, especially seeing you pay good money for these things and you'd like it to work. So I took the thing back to the bike shop where I bought it, but it was sold on consignment. So he basically didn't really want to know about it, and he said, look, I'll get on to the previous owner and I'll see what we can do. And he come back to me and he said, look, the previous owner is adamant that the heater grips worked. I said, well, they don't work now. And this went back and forth a bit. They did work, but now they don't work. And I did a bit of research and I went back to him and I said, look, I have discovered that these are series wound, so if you have a fracture in the heating element, it knocks both of them off. They both won't work. And apparently it isn't that difficult to damage the heating element, and it happens quite a bit because when you're putting the bike on the center stand, you twist and grab this bloody, you tend to give the grip a bit of a hard time. And apparently this is just what I've seen and read, that from other owners that have experienced this problem. It isn't uncommon to damage that heating element by doing that. So I put that to the guy. I said to him, is it possible that, you know, it could have been damaged in the shop or when they were loading the bike, whatever. And he said, look, I don't want to get a bad reputation. So he said, what I'll do, he said, I'll supply a new pair of genuine Ducati heater grips, and if you're happy to fit them, you can fit them. And I said, oh, I'll do that. So that's what I did. He bought a brand new pair of genuine Ducati heater grips, and I fitted them and they still don't work. So what a pain in the arse. So I just put up with it. Like, I can turn them on. What's on the dash up the top there? Hang on. I can turn them on. There you go, that's on low, medium and high, and off and off. But they just don't get hot. So I had the bike in for, it wasn't for the Desmo service, it was for its first service after, I think it was like the 15,000 kilometre service. I put it in to one of the bike shops and I said, look, I'm going to budget a couple of hours labour. I'd like you to investigate this for me, because they got all the right gear. They're able to turn the function on and off in the system, whereas I can't do that. So they did that. They had it all torn apart anyway, so they just did a bit of investigating, like measuring the voltage on the at the grip plugs, and what they decided was that it looks like the thing's controlled by the dashboard. I don't think there's a relay or anything. I think it's a solid state relay and it's in the dash. So the input is this button here, cycle through low, medium, high, and but the output voltage is very, very low, like it's only millivolts, whereas it should be, you know, whatever the voltage range is. I'm just going to pick numbers out of my arse here. Let's just say it was 3 volts for low, 6 volts for medium and 10 volts for high, whatever. That's what they but they couldn't get a change in the voltage, and the voltage was very low, so they put it down to the fact that there was a fault in the dash. So I thought, all right, well, I'll put up with it for now and see if I can come up with something else, or I'll buy a heated grips controller, like a replacement for an Oxford grips or something, and I'll mount that and just wire it to these grips. So then I went for a ride up to Queensland to visit my kids and go to a wedding and catch up with family and friends. And that was a nice little ride. It was 3,482 kilometres by road and 1,000 kilometres by sea, because I got to get across Bass Strait on a ferry. So I went up to Roma, and I went up through New South Wales and outback New South Wales essentially, and when I was getting up around Dubbo and Lightning Ridge, the temperatures were getting up north of 30 degrees Celsius, so it was like, you know, between 30 and 40 degrees Celsius. And once the temperature got north of about 26-27 degrees, the temperature readout on the dash started to work. Now, it didn't do it all the time, but it did it some of the time. Because I was thinking I had a faulty sensor, or it was yeah, I started to think I had a faulty sensor, or it was now, Dutchy, you told me there was a pizza oven up here. You want to be careful, son. For those who don't know what a pizza oven is, it's a mobile camera. You guys watch your speed. Where was I? Oh, the temperature gauge started to work. As much as it's great giving it the berries up here, if there's a bloody speed camera trailer, take the risk, Andy. I didn't have to worry about it. There wasn't a bloody camera. God damn it. Oh well, anyway. So the temperature gauge started working. Sorry fellas, the temperature gauge started to work, and it was a little bit intermittent, but it worked most of the time. And then when I got back to Tasmania, I started to think of that what I was experiencing with the temperature sensor was essentially either one of two things. One, it's a connection issue, so like a bad connection, and the other possibility is it's got a fractured wire, and when it gets hot enough, it's making contact and working. So then it was a cold, like I'd never ever seen that gauge work in cooler temperatures. And I was going to work one morning. I took the covers off the bike. Oh, there's the camera. That's a pizza oven. So I took the covers off the bike, started up, and it said 6 degrees. I thought, oh, it's working. And then I jerried, and I thought, I wonder if the heated grips will work. So I turned them on, and they did. The heated grips were working. But then it all sort of failed again, and now they're not working again. So I'm convinced that it's an issue with a connection. So what I'm going to do is strip all of the bloody fairings off the front of it so I can get to the plug at the back of the dash. I'll unplug it. Actually, I was talking to Todd Patterson over in Western Australia from Wayne Patterson's Motorcycle Centre, and he suggested that I start the bike up, take all the fairings and that off, start the bike up, and just gently touch the wires. Yeah, just to see whether or not it's a broken wire. Failing that, I'll unplug the dash, clean it all with contact cleaner, and put it back together again and see if that doesn't fix it. With a bit of luck, it will. Yeah, so that ride I did up to Queensland, that was bloody nice. It was 3 weeks I had off. It was bloody lovely. The weather was fantastic. The worst day I had was the ride from Hobart up to Devonport to catch the ferry. Oh, it was terrible. We'd had a beautiful week leading up to that. It was a Saturday. I sailed on a Saturday night. So yeah, right up until the Friday even, it was beautiful. Sunny days, nice and warm, like low 20s, 23, 24, somewhere around there, but just really nice and warm. And then on the Saturday, it was freezing cold, like about 10 degrees Celsius. It was raining and it was blowing a gale, and I mean really bad. Like we've had some bad winds down here in Tasmania because we're right on the 40th parallel, so we get the roaring 40s. But this was something that I hadn't really experienced here before, like just really, really strong winds. And heading up through the Midlands of Tassie, up around areas like, Epping Forest and Symonds Plains, those places, people who know Tassie will know where I mean. It was really, really bad, just about blow you off the road. And I got to Devonport, and I was wet and cold. I've got a dry rider onesie, wet weather onesie. I'd stopped on the side of the road and wrestled with that to get it on, because once you get, like I was wearing this jacket, once you get a little bit of moisture on the leather, trying to get those things on is a bit of a mission. But I did, I got it on, and that kept me a little warmer and certainly kept me dry. When I got to Devonport, and sort of parked. There's a motorcycle shelter there, so I just sort of parked in there and waited for my time to go down and check in. By that stage the rain had stopped, thankfully, because you got to ride through a terminal, and then you give them your details. They give you your cabin key and your boarding pass, and then you ride up into these laneways where you got to park, and you wait until they direct you onto the boat. So you can be waiting for quite a while, so I'm glad it wasn't raining. And then the crossing that night was rough. I've been on that ferry quite a few times, and I've had one or two rough crossings because Bass Strait can get very unruly. But I'll tell you, that night was the worst I'd ever experienced. I was in an inboard cabin, and that meant that I was sleeping basically nose to tail down the spine of the boat. I was sort of right above the keel with my head at the bow and my feet towards the stern, and I felt every bloody, you could hear these noises that sounded like wire rope straining, like ping, 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 and all these metallic sounds. And then you'd feel the boat crest a wave, and then almost like you feel like it's free falling down the other side, and then boom. Yeah, she was a rough crossing. Didn't get a lot of sleep at all, and I knew we were going to be in for a rough night because they hang all the spew bags up. They put them in all the corridors. Everywhere there's a handrail, there's spew bags. So you know you're going to be in for a rough night when you see that. So that was all right. We sort of got into Port Phillip Bay, and the boat now docks at Geelong, which is southwest of Melbourne. It used to dock at Port Melbourne, but now docks at Geelong. And I got to be honest, I prefer it because it's a bit out of Melbourne, but that's a good thing, because you don't have to negotiate in Melbourne. You don't have to worry about tolls. You can just go on the Western Ring Road, go right around the bloody thing, and the facility at Geelong is better. For anyone who's been across and had to leave from Port Melbourne, you'll know what I mean. Like, there's not much room to park and wait, and especially when you get a few people with caravans and stuff. So that was right. Then we got off in Melbourne, and it was just sunshine and blue skies from that point on. And I had the best time. It was good getting to stay with my young bloke. He was him and his fiancée were very, very accommodating, because they're very busy, especially Jimmy at the moment. He's well, when I arrived, he works on a farm now, so some of you may know he's a motorcycle mechanic, and he'd been working out in Roma at a bike shop there as the lead tech for some time. Then he got lured into doing farm work. Long story short, he had an apprentice that he'd taken under his wing, and he was really trying to give the kid a good experience, and became quite friendly with that kid's brothers, who are, you know, around James's age. In fact, one of them is James's age, and those boys work on a farm, and they lured him out there, and he loves it. Oh God, he loves it. So he's driving tractors and bloody driving trucks. He's got all his licenses now. He's just waiting on them. I think he's doing his multiple combination, which allows him to drive road trains. But he can drive, you know, he's driving semi-trailers and rigids and tractors and bloody everything else. He just loves it. And he also does a bit of mechanical work for him, see? So yeah, he just really enjoys that aspect of it. Across the Huon River. They run jet boat. They have jet boat rides on here. Yeah, so they were ready to harvest. So they'd planted 35,000 acres of bloody barley or something, and they also had wheat and oats in the ground. And they were getting ready, like they thought that they would might be doing the harvest the week that I arrived there, but it was pushed out a couple of weeks. I think they started harvest the weekend I'd left. Like I left James's place on a Monday, and I think that following weekend they started harvest, and they've only just finished now. So that was, oh god, a couple of months ago now, but the harvest was interrupted. So they came out and they do their tests, check the moisture levels and what have you not, and they gave it a green light to start, and they were into the barley. So they started harvesting the barley, and they got like 1 or 2 paddocks into it, and they had to stop because it started to rain out there for them, and 2, I think that they were suggesting that the moisture content wasn't where they wanted it in those other paddocks, so they put it on hold for a week or 2. And the yield was down pretty bad this year. He sends me these Snapchat, he loves his Snapchat, James. That's his that's his social media of choice. He's always sending me Snapchats. And he sent one the other day about how the dry had affected this year's crop and the yields.
So, sorry for the wind. I'll stand in front of the truck. I do have to keep an eye on this. But for anybody interested to know how much of an effect the dryness already has taken on the agricultural, I guess, industry for harvest and their plants, this is our grain pit. Right, that's the back of it where that very back peak starts, and it just goes to here. It's about the length of this, right? Last year with the wet, it was all the way down, and there was another tarp on the end of that. It was probably, oh, it's hard to say. There's another big length of tarp right out there. I've put those 2 silver silos of grain. A couple road trains have left, but all in all, this is really all we got, and it's not even great. It's still pretty shit. Yeah, so I've only got a couple, anyway, cut me off. I've only got a couple truckloads left tonight to put into this pit, and then whatever's in the mother bin. Yeah, that's it there. That's it. 3,000 hectares. Right there. Very dismal. But yeah, bit of smoke around. Big fire. Fire.
So yeah, from there I rode down to the coast to stay with my daughter, who is pregnant with my grandchild. Her and her husband. That was really nice, and about halfway to Brisbane from Roma is a town called Chinchilla, and a mate of mine, Incy, came out and met me in Chinchilla, and we rode back in together. Got off the Warrego and did a bit of a detour, went inland and out through the desert and Boona. So that was really good. It was great to see Incy again. Yeah, so I caught up with a heap of people that I used to work with at the brewery. Organised a night at one of the pubs around Beenleigh, and we all met up and had a few beers and some laughs and caught up on old times. What else? Had a big cousins get together, so all the cousins from my mother's side of the family. We all met up at a pub. Got to hang out with my brother, my sister. Went and saw my parents. It was just a really good trip. The only downside was, like, I went to a wedding for a mate. This was the catalyst for all of this. I hadn't seen him in forever, and he rang me up around the middle of the year, and he said, "Oh, I'm getting married in September, and you're coming up." I said, "Oh, okay, cool." And I'd wanted to do the ride up there forever, like before COVID. My initial plan was to ride it after my daughter's wedding, which was years ago. And so I thought, okay, well, this is the catalyst I was looking for. So I started to think about it, and I thought, yeah, the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to do it. So I thought, right, well, I need dates to book the ferry and that. So I rang him up and I said, "What date's your wedding?" He said, "It's the 30th of September. And I couldn't believe it. The 30th of September is AFL Grand Final Day. How un-Australian is that? You have a wedding on AFL Grand Final Day. And to make matters worse, my team, the Brisbane Lions, made the grand final, and I have waited 19 years for them to get back into a grand final. 2004 was the last time they were in a grand final. But at this stage, at that point, they hadn't made the grand final. They were still playing to play the final series, and I thought, well, you know, if they make it, I'll just have to get COVID and not be at his wedding. But yeah, they bloody well did. They beat Carlton in the semi-final. And then they won the prelim, and yeah, they made it to the grand final. So wedding day came, and I went. I had my scarf on, and I was able to stream the game on my phone, and I was lucky enough to be able to sort of watch the first quarter, and then the bloody bride showed up. Ugh. So the bride shows up, and then I just had one ear pod in, and I had the phone in my pocket. So I was listening to the radio commentary. What are you doing, Dutchie? I listened to the radio commentary, and then once the ceremony was over, I managed to watch like the last 10 minutes of the fourth quarter, and sadly the Lions lost. It wasn't by much. There was lots of lead changes, and it was a pretty close game in the end, but the Collingwood Magpies took home the buttered confection, so good luck to them. We just couldn't get the job done on the day. And the funny thing about, for those who don't follow the Australian rules football, there are two types of supporters. 50%, nearly 50% of Australian rules football fans barrack for Collingwood, and the other 50 barrack for whoever's playing them. The most polarising team. So for the rest of Australia, on behalf of the Brisbane Lions, I apologise. We had one job. Next year. What else is happening? So I haven't been moving as quickly as I would like. I'm certain it's not as quickly as you guys would like to, on getting my shed up and going. So it still needs so much work. The first problem I had was that it just had a 720 wide door, 720mm wide door, It's just a standard. Actually, it's smaller than standard. I think it was an old laundry door or something that had been used. So essentially, I couldn't fit a motorcycle into the shed. So with a little help from a mate, Alan Blood, we cut a bigger hole in the shed. So we opened it up to a 1500mm wide, 1.5 metre wide door. I welded up a door frame out of RHS and clad it with colour bond, put it on rollers, so it's a sliding door now. So I've done that. The next job we'll do in there is address the concrete. The concrete's terrible, and we need to essentially scabble it and then float another slab on top of it. So that'll be the next big job, and then there's a bit of lining and some painting and what have you not. And I also said farewell to the old hospital bed bike lift. Now that old thing, I've had that, the man in front of me, Dutchy, he gave me that, and it's done the rounds within the Riders of Tasmania. I'm about the third custodian of that thing. The only modification I made to it was put the wheel chock on the front of it. So in order to maintain the Karma, I gifted it on to another guy who's a member of the Rot, and he's very excited to get his hands on it. So but it served me well. I think I had that thing for nearly 10 years, I think. But I've managed to unbox my new one. So those of you who are regular viewers probably aware that I bought a new lift. It was over a year ago now, and it's been lying on the workshop floor at work, still in its wooden box all that time. And on Friday I loaded it onto the back of my ute, brought it home, unboxed it and placed it in its new location inside the shed. And then the very first job I did on it was the multi needed new brake pads, so I put it up on the hoist and or on the lift, and fitted some new brake pads. No, didn't film it. Boring job anyway. Fairly simple job on these things. You don't even need to remove the caliper on the rear. You just pop two clips out, remove a pin and swing the pads out. That's it. Put new pads in and put the pin back and the clips back. Done. But I didn't change the rear ones because the rear ones were fine. I bought them but didn't need them, so I'm just keeping them on the shelf. The front ones, you've got to remove the calipers, so these are the radial mounted calipers on these things. Yeah, so essentially you pull the two retaining screws out, you wiggle it back and forth on the rotor to push the pistons back, and then pop the pads out, pop the calipers off, remove the pads and pop them back in again. There's no pins or anything on the front ones, they just slot straight in. Yeah, so I've just been using the brakes quite gently, bedding them in properly. One of the things that I couldn't believe up on the mainland, like it's been a while since I've been on any of the highways and byways up on the mainland. I mean, sure, we go over for the sausage tour, but we stay hemmed in pretty tight around Victoria. But I couldn't believe the amount of policing. God, it's just incredible. point-to-point cameras, mobile cameras, fixed cameras. It's everywhere. The amount of money they throw at that, it's incredible. And the funny thing is that I sort of set myself limits as to what I was prepared to wear in terms of fines and demerit points. And I basically just rode where I wanted, as fast as I wanted, with zero fucks given. And I was expecting to get 1 or 2, maybe 3 infringement notices. Not one. Not one. And I think that's to do with the fact that I'm on a motorcycle. A lot of the cameras are forward facing, so they're looking for front number plates. And when they don't get one, it means they got to manually go through and check the system, and they either can't be bothered, or they look at it and make an assessment and think, oh, you know, let it go. I know that, and the same thing with tolls. I got picked up on the New South Wales tolls, like the M7. I rode down the coast on the way back, and went down through Port Macquarie and Mittagong and those areas. And yeah, the tolls there, they picked me up. But the Queensland ones, they didn't, because I put myself on my daughter's toll account, because I didn't want to have to pay administration fees, etc. And yeah, I was just sort of kept an eye on the account, and I said to her, whatever comes up, I'll just reimburse you for. And I never got any, other than the ones in New South Wales. So I thought that was pretty amazing, because I know that for motorbikes they tend to do the same thing. The camera's looking for a front number plate, and when they don't get one, they've got to manually go through and look for the cameras that pick up the rear of the bike, and they just obviously couldn't be stuffed. When I was travelling to Lightning Ridge, I stopped at Canamble to get petrol, and I was using a navigation app. It was just I was just using an Apple navigation, actually. I put it around the urban areas and the metropolitan areas. I was using an app called Waze, and that is brilliant, because it's a interactive one, so you can, and people do update the thing with speed camera locations and hazards, and the first experience of that was I left Geelong off the ferry and was heading towards Melbourne, and they came up with look out, roadkill ahead. And I thought, yeah, good on you, this is on the Princess Freeway between Geelong and Melbourne. And sure enough, there was a bloody kangaroo carcass in the middle of the road. I could not believe it. But anyway, I left Canamble and I was using Apple navigation, and there was some roadworks between Canamble and Lightning Ridge, and bloody Apple Maps decided to detour me. And because I'd stopped for petrol, I didn't really think about where I was heading. I just drove out the bloody servo and listened to the navigation app. And it took me on these back roads, and I thought, why is it taking me this way? And the next thing I know, it took me up a dirt road. And this dirt road turned to sand. And it had cattle crossing it. Cattle walking all over it. And after quite a long time, I came across a German girl driving a Toyota Land Cruiser, and I asked her, I said, does this go to Lightning Ridge? And she said it goes to Walgett, but you still got quite a way to go. It was like 126 kilometre long dirt road, and I was already well into it and was actually enjoying it, and I thought, bugger it, I'll just stay on it. So I did. I just stayed on it and rode into Walgett, and from there it was bitumen into Lightning Ridge. But it was just because there was a little bit of road work, and the road works were minor, and they just put a they control them with traffic lights, so they'll have a red light at one end and a green light at the other in a shared lane situation. And that was enough for Apple Maps to decide to do me a solid and set me on a flaming 2.5 hour detour. But as it turns out, I actually enjoyed it, so I wasn't too worried. This bloke in this ute must be thinking, oh, shit, look at all them bikes behind me. Am I ruining your day? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Should I pull over and let them pass? Yes, you should. Will you? No. The battery went flat in this. Sorry. We've arrived. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. I'll catch you next time on the Motorcycling Sessions. Bye for now.